Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening, a lot of breaking news, but at some point I have to cut off receiving new information and actually make a video for you guys. So just know all the information is accurate as of Tuesday morning, but things are changing fast. And what has precipitated this crazy week was Iran's drone and missile attack against Israel on Saturday night. And this event was the biggest political theater probably in the history of the Middle East. Iran knew it was going to fail. Israel knew it was going to fail. And Iran gave 2 weeks' notice and explained exactly what they were going to do so it would deliberately fail. And you can see the problem. Iran does not border Israel. They cannot attack them directly. So to launch missiles and drones, they have to violate the airspace of Iraq, Syria, and Jordan. And the Iranians used their proxies in Yemen to launch drones from Yemen, and they violated the airspace of Saudi Arabia. So this doesn't make any of these countries happy that potentially they could be casualties in Iran's attempted attack on Israel going over their territory. So the Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia, provided intelligence and real-time tracking so that Israel could successfully shoot down all these drones and missiles. So this is how absurd this attack was. The United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia provided real-time tracking data so that the air forces of Jordan, Israel, the United Kingdom, and even France and the United States could shoot down all 300 of these missiles and drones. This was never going to succeed. Everyone in the region knew it was never going to succeed. But Iran wanted to do it anyways. One, to demonstrate to their people that they're tough, but I think they just wanted the experience. They just wanted the exercise. So Iran is offering Israel an off-ramp to conclude this tit-for-tat exchange, given that Israel blew up the annex of a consulate in Syria, killing a bunch of people. Iran says, we're good now. We don't have to do this anymore. It's now up to Israel if they want this off-ramp or if they're going to retaliate. Given that Israel is Israel, they're probably going to keep bombing Iranian proxies or Revolutionary Guard forces that show up in other countries to train and provide intelligence to terrorist organizations. But whatever. All of the missiles and drones that were shot down, most of the debris landed in Saudi Arabia or Jordan or Iraq. Nothing in Israel was even damaged. But it was this event that catapulted foreign aid from the United States to the top of the news cycle. Hakeem Jeffries, he's the minority leader in the House, says Republicans are out of excuses. They have to do something on foreign aid. The October 7th attack by Hamas against Israel was now almost 7 months ago. And for 7 months, House Republicans have done nothing. That's realistic, to get military aid to Israel. So now we're talking about aid for Ukraine as well. This is MAGA House member Matt Gaetz. He's the one that sex trafficked a 17-year-old. If we send billions to Ukraine because of this Iranian attack, then the terrorists win. Who exactly in this tweet are the terrorists? I think he's referring to Ukrainians, but this guy's not very bright. So there's a deal between President Biden, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and Speaker Mike Johnson. They claim they've achieved a consensus on how to move forward on military aid for Israel and Ukraine. So here's the tweet from Speaker Johnson. I've just spoken with the House Republican Conference on my plan to address national security supplemental legislation on the growing security crisis. This week we will consider separate bills with a structured and germane amendment process. Fund our ally Israel, support Ukraine in its war against Russian aggression, strengthen our allies in the Indo-Pacific, pass additional measures to counter our adversaries, and strengthen our national security. I left the speaker a comment. How about just saying, fund our ally Israel to oppose Iran, fund our ally Ukraine to oppose Russia, fund our ally Taiwan to oppose China. Russia, Iran, and China are all working together. You are endangering the national security of the United States and the entire Western Democratic Alliance by placating the crazy people who support Russia. So I'm convinced Speaker Johnson is playing out this gambit, allowing a vote on military aid to Ukraine in a standalone package, because he was worried the discharge petition was going to hit 218. Given the high-profile attack from Iran, House members, Republicans who support Israel, were feeling the pressure. And I do think a group of about 20 were getting ready to sign this discharge petition if this week Speaker Johnson insisted on talking about laundry liberty and refrigerator freedom, the stupid nonsense he had scheduled this week instead. So here's the clip of Speaker Johnson announcing the separate bills. I want you to watch the first minute and 20 seconds.
Just had a policy conference with all the House Republicans. We laid out the plan on how to finally address the supplemental situation. There are precipitating events around the globe that we're all watching very carefully, and we know that the world is watching us to see how we react. We have terrorists and tyrants and terrible leaders around the world like Putin and Xi and in Iran, and they're watching to see if America will stand up for its allies and in our own interest around the globe, and we will. What I presented to the conference tonight is our play call on this. What we'll do is bring to the House floor independent measures. We won't be voting on the Senate supplemental in its current form, but we will vote on each of these measures separately in 4 different pieces. We will vote on the Israel aid, on the aid to Ukraine, on the aid to the Indo-Pacific, and then another measure that has our national security priorities included, and that has some of the things with regard to the loan lease option and the Repo Act and some other sanctions on Iran and other measures that we've been talking about here for quite some time. We'll also allow for an amendment process on the floor so that the regular processes and orders of the House can play out. Every member ultimately will be able to vote their own conscience on all of these matters, and everyone will have an opportunity to weigh in and bring the amendments that they think are suitable.
You can just tell from his body language and his tone that he feels defeated. This man hates his life because everyone in the free world, the democratic world, hates him for blocking this vote for 7 months. So why separate bills? He even said it. He wants each member to be able to vote their conscience. So here's Marjorie Trader Green. This is her tweets from yesterday. It's anti-Semitic to make Israeli aid contingent on funding Ukrainian Nazis. These should be separate bills. I left Marjorie a reply. President Zelensky is Jewish. It's anti-Semitic to call him a Nazi. And indeed, the chief rabbi of Ukraine, Chief Rabbi Blech, said the same thing. There are no Nazis in Ukraine, just Russian invaders. Russia is targeting Christians in the occupied territories. The Russian army has destroyed over 400 Baptist churches. So this is a Russian propaganda talking point that Ukraine is waging war on Christianity because they're trying to expel the Russian Eastern Orthodox Church. All of these Russian Eastern Orthodox priests are FSB agents spying for the Russians. And Putin wants to control the church. He wants to control the faithful. So in the occupied territories, they're destroying any independent Christian churches. any churches with ties to the West. This is from Christianity Today. Baptists call on House Speaker Johnson to stand with Ukraine. Seminary leaders say that the country, where Baptists are the largest Protestant denomination, has lost 400 churches in the last year. The Russian military, the FSB, is raping, murdering, and torturing Baptist priests in the occupied territories. And Speaker Johnson and the evangelical community in America is the most pro-Russian segment of the American population. Make this make sense for me. And since Marjorie wants to talk about anti-Semitism, Marjorie Taylor Greene promotes anti-Semitic conspiracy theories all the time about how Jews control the media, George Soros, the Rothschild banking cartel. In 2018, on Facebook, Marjorie posted about Jewish space lasers were responsible for California wildfires. I don't understand how you can simultaneously promote conspiracies that Jews control the world while also being pro-Israel. Make this make sense for me, because I don't understand these people. And Speaker Johnson is now facing a threat to be removed. Here is MAGA member Thomas Massey. He's from Kentucky. I have just told Mike Johnson in conference that I'm co-sponsoring the motion to vacate the chair introduced by Marjorie Taylor Greene. He should pre-announce his resignation as Boehner did, so we can pick a new speaker without even being without a GOP speaker. It's very possible that MAGA members are going to try and remove Mike Johnson to stop this vote on military aid to Ukraine. The question now is, would Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats choose to save him when they're not even really getting what they want? Just schedule an up or down vote on the Senate's version of the bill. Why are we doing this 4 different bill nonsense if you want them all to pass? And this is the game. This is what Speaker Johnson is trying to do to placate the members of the Republican Party who support Russia and also keep his job. Splitting up these bills, one for Israel, one for Ukraine, one for Taiwan, and one with some other random stuff. So here's the political trap. Here's the game. First, the House will pass separate bills. These bills then have to go back to the Senate to be voted on. Senate Republicans will then pass the House version of aid to Israel, but filibuster the standalone bill for Ukraine. If Ukraine aid can't get 60 votes to end debate in the Senate, it's been filibustered, the bill is dead. The last time, this was 2 months ago, back in February, the Senate voted on aid to Ukraine with Israel. 30 senators voted against it, because that's what Donald Trump wanted. If Donald Trump can call and threaten 10 more Senate Republicans to join a filibuster, then a standalone aid bill to Ukraine will never pass. Or, if Senate Republicans can manage to amend the bill at all, if they fix a spelling typo, it then has to go back to the House to be voted on again, and Speaker Johnson could just never schedule a vote for the Senate's amended version. Meanwhile, Senate Republicans, of course, will not amend anything from the House Israel aid bill to make sure it doesn't need another vote. Either way, this process that Speaker Johnson is insisting on will take weeks or months potentially. And the White House says it will not accept a standalone Israel aid bill. If House Republicans and Senate Republicans play this game, trying to advance an aid bill for just Israel, and then they filibuster or block Ukraine, at the moment, President Biden says he's not going to sign this bill. You have to pass both, otherwise Israel gets nothing. But it all comes down to time. This is the calendar for the House of Representatives. Speaker Johnson's about to send everyone home on a week and a half vacation. 19th through the 28th, the House won't be in session to debate or vote on anything. You would hope Speaker Johnson would change the calendar and put the House back into session, but something tells me he's not going to do that. I don't understand it, guys. I just don't understand it, but this isn't going to change prior to November. The Republican Party has to be demolished up and down the ballot for them to finally give up on their support for Russia, their infatuation, their obsession, their love for Vladimir Putin, repeating Russian propaganda, while on Kremlin state TV they threaten the United States every single day. So let's now switch it up and talk about the military map. According to the Institute for the Study of War, Russian military commanders were dismissed for failing to undo Ukraine's 2023 gains. The Russian MOD has reportedly fired the commanders for the 18th Army and the 70th Regiment for their failure to retake territories around Kherson's Krinky and Zaporizhzhia's Robotyne. So even though Russia has successfully blocked military aid from the United States to Ukraine for 7 months, the Russian military on the ground is still incompetent. So in Ukraine's summer counteroffensive last year, this is the progress they made towards the village of Robotyne. Putin really wanted to undo this, to demoralize the West prior to his re-election last month. And nope, the Russians can't advance. Likewise, this area in Kherson around Krinky remains a gray zone. Despite taking horrendous losses and having plenty of resources, the Russians can't expel the Ukrainians who maintain this bridgehead in the village of Krinky. So what's Russia's primary objective right now? And it's the village of Chasiv Yar. The commotion coming out of the Kremlin is that Putin has ordered that the village of Chasiv Yar be taken prior to the May 9th Victory Day parade. Russia's pretty silly about these calendar date events, but this is usually how it works in dictatorships. And this is just pathetic. The Russians took Bakhmut over a year ago, and the next stepping stone in this direction was the village of Chasiv Yar. So here's the outskirts of Bakhmut, here's Chasiv Yar. It's 7 kilometers. And in over a year, with continuous ground assaults, the Russians can't even take Chasiv Yar. Why? Russians attack with motorcycles and Chinese golf carts. Infantry gains ground at Chasiv Yar. As Kyiv's troops suffer from shortages of artillery and air defense ammunition, Ukrainian FPV pilots continue to rack up an impressive number of kills. Ukraine is actually holding the Russians back by just crowdfunding for FPV drones. Lots of Ukrainians in their basements at home, in their free time, are assembling these FPV drones, buying components from the EU, assembling them themselves, handing them off to military units. And these videos online are wild. I'll link this down below, but these are Russians riding into battle, assaulting fortified Ukrainian positions on motorcycles. It's one thing to use motorcycles for supply runs or reconnaissance or getting from one point to another quickly to avoid being attacked. But motorcycles are probably the worst thing you could take into battle when assaulting a fortified position. This shows that the Russians are in lack of armored vehicles, in lack of trucks, in lack of anything that provides better protection than a motorcycle. These people all died, by the way. Everything's lost. Russians mourn flooded homes. I didn't mention this in my last video. I didn't have time, but the flooding continues in central Russia, and it's actually getting worse. Partial dam collapse in Siberia's Tomsk region as the river swells over. Heavy rains, melting snow, lack of maintenance, that's what's causing all these reservoirs to burst and all these dams to collapse. Russian cities continue to be flooded, and there's really no response from the Kremlin. They're not even talking about this on Kremlin state TV because they don't plan to do anything to help these people. So here's a clip of some Russians asking for help. So let me read just a little bit of this video. These are Russian residents of the city of Orenburg filming a video directly pleading to Putin for help because nobody is helping them. People were forced to leave their homes, leave their property behind. We're asking you, Putin, to take under control the situation with the reservoir. We believe this could have been avoided. We want to ask for help with compensation for the residents who suffered from flooding. We have no one to rely on except you. Vladimir Putin, please help us. Putin doesn't care about these people, and they're not going to be helped. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. The European Union is set to unlock 50 billion euros in aid following an endorsement of Ukraine's reform plan. The European Commission has recommended the EU Council approve Ukraine's reform plan, which enables the release of this assistance. I think this has to do with Ukraine's ascension process to join the EU. This is tax money from the EU meant to help Ukraine conform to their standards and regulations to integrate into the Union. But I'm sure this money can be used once again to help support Ukraine resist what the Russians are trying to do to their country. More fantastic news from the Dutch. The Netherlands has announced it will allocate $4.7 billion in military assistance and humanitarian relief over the next 3 years. This is on top of all the other amazing stuff they've been doing with the fighter jet coalition. To the people of the Netherlands, you guys are incredible. Final clip I have for you, once again, is from Richard Woodruff with Frontline Kit. He's a British volunteer currently stationed in the city of Lviv. And he's been trying to organize these rehabilitation retreats for wounded Ukrainian soldiers in the Carpathian Mountains. So here's his video. He's going to explain it.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, you beautiful people on Twitter. I'm just walking through the wonderful central Plosha Rynok here in Lviv after the wonderful meeting that I've just had with Darina and Olga from the Vidnova project. They're the guys that are running the Carpathians retreat for the 10 soldiers up in the mountains. They have a full therapy program with specialists in both physical therapy and mental therapy. And this project will be running for 5 days, and the cost is just over £600, around about $700 per soldier that will be there. So if you'd like to support, please, please, please do. It's happening in just 5 days. We can do this, guys. Slava Ukraini.
So this retreats in the Carpathian Mountains for wounded Ukrainian soldiers. Richard organized the last retreat about 2 weeks ago. Here are the Ukrainian defenders who got to go to the mountains for the last trip.
Дуже дякую to the Brennpunkt UA community and everyone on Twitter who donated so that we could take 12 heroes on a break, 2-night break in the Carpathian Mountains. We all had a fantastic time and wanted to say дуже дякую and Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
If you're interested in donating to help these Ukrainian defenders attend this retreats, I'll share some more clips in future videos. Once again, there are therapy sessions, and this is just an overall great experience for these guys who have survived the trauma of war. I'll put the link for the PayPal page down below, and it's up to you if you'd like to support this worthy cause. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.